Hey, yo, what the f? Looking like a snack over here. Put me in a vending machine looking like a bag of Fritos. Looking like a bag of Cheetos, Fritos, and Doritos. My guy's looking like a bag of Takis over here. Come get me down at the bodega. I'm hanging out next to the bodega cat. Hey, how's it going? I want to get one Anthony Fantano over here the Aki way. Nice. Bitch! It's time for a new episode of Let's Argue. Let's stop around! We're here to argue. Went on the internet, accepted a bunch of your hot takes, unpopular opinions, tough questions. Frankly, it was not a good batch. Batch was not great. Massively disappointed. You guys need to start doing better. This is the big time. Up the ante. What do you think we're on? Rumble? It's YouTube, baby. YouTube. This ain't Vimeo. When I ask you guys to give me hot takes, unpopular opinions, and tough questions, I expect you to put in just a smidge more effort than this. I'm disgusted, I'm disappointed, you're filthy, and I hate you. But also, I love you. 7 Minute Drill is actually a great diss track similar to Like That and Push-Ups. No hard-hitting bars were needed. It's just a checkmate to let K-Dot know it's game on, especially as Cole's flow and lyrical ability get stronger later in the track. I don't know why you want to go on the internet and just like be this wrong. I don't know why. Especially considering like the rapping doesn't get that good toward the end of the track. How is it a checkmate moment? Because Kendrick was not cornered by that song. Like, J. Cole apologized for it before he even had the chance to respond. And on top of it, like, on the front end of the track, like, J. Cole was just totally full of shit, just totally playing off how good and entertaining and fantastic multiple albums in Kendrick's catalog were, really kind of downplaying his talent in a way that was kind of like, I mean, there's other fronts you could attack the guy on. Whether or not his music is actually good and resonates with people is not one of them. It was just a preposterous track out of the gate. And again, it was very obvious from first listen that J. Cole's heart was not fully into doing that track. So how you got as much out of it that you did, I don't know. It sounds pretty clear to me that he's not even like excited to be doing the diss. And you have to like really kind of be locked in order to have a good quality diss track. This year will go down as one of the most insane and biggest for women pop artists. You already have Charlie, Beyonce, Billie, Ariana, Dua, Taylor, Katy, Gaga, Sabrina, Kesha, Sophie on the way. It's a shame Chappell Rowan's album came out in 2023, but she also feels a part of it. No, she most definitely does, because like her hype wave has built up into what it is this year. And no, it's like absolutely true. This has just been a banger fucking year for pop music. There's absolutely positively no denying that. And it's kind of worth wondering, is that as a result of something, or did it all just like kind of serendipitously coalesce in this way? Also, keep in mind a lot of these pop artists have at one time been discussed as like, these sort of like mid to low tier pop icons and figures who like, they make pop music, but they're not quite mainstream. They're like an alternative type pop artist in a way. And since like a lot of those discussions about them have been had and a lot of those think pieces have come out, their profiles, like especially Charlie's, has only grown. And I feel like the space that we've been seeing for pop artists that have a more alternative bent, it's growing and growing and growing. And, like whatever I guess you could sort of like, I guess characterize as being alt pop in a way is kind of slowly kind of taking over and becoming the mainstream of pop music. At least that's my perception of it as of right now. And when that might reach a peak, or what that ultimately will evolve into from there, if that mainstream takeover does fully happen, I don't know. But it is a trend I feel like I'm noticing. Clipping is great. They'd be even better with a rapper who sounded more grimy, raspy, less like they're rapping on Broadway. I'm not saying they need like MC Ride, but just a voice that's more intimidating, has more presence. The lyrics are fire though. Do the vocals like really sound like from David, that they're trying to go for Broadway per se? Or do they just kind of sound that way because I feel like that vibe has been embedded into our minds because of, Hamilton. Keep in mind, like, clipping pre-exists Hamilton. Although, prior to that, David did have, acting and stage performance experience, but there wasn't necessarily anything about his rapping at the time that to me said like, oh, this is rapping for the theater. So I don't know, to me that kind of reads as like a bit of a perception thing that I don't entirely vibe with. And while I have like watched recordings of Hamilton, I'm not a big Hamilton boy, not a big musical theater boy in general. So maybe that's part of the reason I don't really have that perception. Again, I've seen it, but I've like more or less like, kind of like avoided it, any kind of like regular consumption of it. And maybe that's kind of put me in a place where I just kind of see clippings music as clipping and not anything else. JID's Forever Story is better than J. Cole's entire discography. I mean, yeah, true, but the thing is, I don't really feel like that's much of a point because JID's The Forever Story is better than most rappers' discographies. Like, it's that fantastic of an album. He's just a very, very, very above average rapper and lyricist. He is making better music than most. The fact that he's made better music than J. Cole, I don't really think is, necessarily any shade to J. Cole specifically, even though obviously, like, you're trying to pose it as such here. And I mean, I could sort of see why, because, oh, he's on Dreamville and he's better than, like, the Dreamville guy. But again, JID has made music that is better than most rappers because he's just better than most rappers at writing, at storytelling, at rapping, at conceptualizing. So this is not really a diss against J. Cole. 2000's Weezer is nowhere near as bad as people make it out to be. I feel like people heard Beverly Hills on the radio and that's all they remember, but Green and Maladroit are genuinely great albums, and Make Believe and Red are decent too. I think Red has good highlights, and obviously, Maladroit's a good record, and Green is catchy, maybe not as catchy as the Blue album and a little too saccharine at points, but I wouldn't go as far as to say Make Believe is decent. And, look, while Weezer has certainly made worse albums since those records, the reason I feel like a lot of people still have a negative connotation associated with those LPs, it's because those albums really kind of signified the beginning of the end, while in the grander scheme of Weezer's catalog, they're not the worst things they have put out. They were still the worst things they have put out at the time. And if from there they went on to just consistently make much better albums without any sort of like, missteps or anything like that, they would be perceived as their worst releases and their worst records, especially Make Believe. But no, I don't really feel like, we can say that, and maybe most of the ire in their catalog shouldn't be reserved for Make Believe because, again, worse albums. Brat is the future of music and might just set the template for EDM and pop for the remainder of the decade, or at least I hope so. It takes hyperpop, autotune, and beats and turn them into something mainstream and radio friendly. I also think we're after hyperpop now, something new. I would agree. I think we're in a post-hyperpop moment. However, I don't wish for this album to become a template that everybody is just sort of like endlessly copying, because again, I feel like we kind of hit that wall already with hyperpop itself, and it just led to a lot of mediocre copycat artists, a lot of forgettable albums, songs, and records. The wave really crested, and after the fact, it just was not all, but mostly for naught. And the best artists who were kind of like leading the charge on that style of music ended up switching their sounds and kind of doing something different anyway. So like, what really is like the use of having loads of people all copy the same thing? Not that people can't borrow inspiration from other stuff, but like everybody kind of honing in on the same idea, sound, trend, wave. It has its benefits and, has had proven great and positive results, like in the instance of multiple classic, groundbreaking, influential eras of music, be that punk, be that new wave, be that whatever. But I don't wish for, like dozens of artists to just basically be like copying the Brat blueprint. I don't want to hear a bunch of like lesser versions of such a fantastic record. I want to hear the fantastic record. And, you know, while borrowing and taking inspiration is fine, I want other people to sort of formulate their own recipes as well. But if there is one thing I would love for the music industry to broadly take away from Brat, it's that you don't need to water your shit down as far as pop and electronic music and dance music goes in order to reach a mainstream and a passionate audience. LP is the best white rapper over Eminem. Eminem just happens to rap fast, which has tricked people into thinking he's in the top 5 of all time, when he only has 2 albums that are great, with most everything else being mid or bad. I feel like when you take into account everything, again, songwriting, album quality, consistency, wordplay, production talent, the only thing Eminem, like, clears LP on totally and without debate is just that he raps fast. And I think one more thing that you could really kind of give to Eminem over LP, and maybe this is only because he's just more consistent with it, is that Eminem is much more, I think, thorough of a storyteller and narrative builder. Eminem's works and albums consistently over the years tend to be a lot more dramatic and theatrical. He's playing narrative angles and in character. There's usually layers and different perspectives to what he's trying to get across in his tracks lyrically. There's a lot more deep lore to the Eminem canon, you could say. It's kind of funny. I feel like I'm like out arguing the point I was originally going to make here slowly. But as far as just like making straight heat and bangers, just rippity rapping over some stellar instrumentals and just coming together with a catchy song that like really kind of sticks with you, I feel like LP is consistently like more the workhorse. Though, look, you're entitled to your opinion on which one you prefer over the other. Influence is overrated when it comes to the greatest of all time discussions, since it's about how your audience reacts to your art than the art in question. There's no reason Eminem should be placed higher than Denzel in hip-hop GOAT debates because of influence. Okay, look, I can't necessarily speak to Eminem versus Denzel Curry per se. I don't even know if Denzel Curry would like put himself against Eminem in a greatest of all time debate. But I do agree with your assertion that influence isn't everything and shouldn't be a primary decider as to whether or not an artist is the greatest of all time or worthy of being in such discussions. Because like really, what is influence at the end of the day, and how do we typically gauge that? Like how many lesser, like way more boring rappers are out there and are willing to just like kind of copy and rip off your shit endlessly, which may not even necessarily be a good thing, especially in the case of Eminem, because like it's pretty widely understood that most of the rappers out there that copy his whole shtick, his style, his delivery, his everything, most of them suck and are annoying to listen to. So why should your influence be a big deal when most of that influence results in the proliferation of just a bunch of terrible copycats? T-Pab isn't Kendrick's best album, it's Good Kid, Mad City. You know, I'm going to say this. I remember a time on the internet where that was like the resounding narrative and sort of general understanding, and I'm glad we don't live in that time anymore. And I think that is going to be it for this episode of Let's Argue. Thank you very much for watching. You're the best. Mwah. Love you. I'll see you in the next one. And over here next to my head is another video that you could check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano. Argue. Love you. You're the best. Forever.